If the room starts to fill up a little bit more, then I'd like you to move to the center. You probably won't need to do that. I remind everybody, we are not a church service right now. We are a recital in a church with church people. So what does that mean? We believe Psalm 47 says, "Oh, clap your hands." And you're certainly entitled, if you like what Lenora does, to share that with her with applause. However, we are still in the church, and so we'd like you not to open up your Kentucky Fried Chicken and your big 48-ounce slushies and all that. We still like to refrain from eat and drink, food and drink. As the pastor mentioned, we are one event this morning in this year-long series of events celebrating through the arts what the Lord has done here over 200 years, especially during the past year with the beautiful renovation of our sanctuary. I'd like to also say that we're going to do another quick switch at when this recital is over and restore the chancel for the second service. So we'll ask Lenora to be down front here out of our way, and if any of you'd like to greet her, either after the recital or after the second service at 11 o'clock. Let's practice Psalm 47 and give Lenora a warm welcome.
Thank you all so much. It is a deep honor and privilege to be dedicating this glorious instrument. I am so honored and humbled, and I express my thanks to Paul Roberts and to the ministers here. I have had just a blessed weekend getting to spend hours practicing on this magnificent instrument in this beautiful, beautiful sanctuary. I am just thrilled and humbled, and words just can't express what this weekend means to me. Thank you all for your hospitality and having me here. Johann Sebastian Bach, again, words fail me in what this composer means to me and to my colleagues in church music. I once had a professor who referred to him as the great godfather of church music, but to those of us who get to play and perform his music, which is a workout, he stuns us time and time again and just transports us to other worlds. He's most known for inscribing all of his music with the Latin inscription Soli Deo Gloria, to God alone be the glory. He not only knew who created all beautiful things, but he also knew from whom all good gifts come. And he was a master not only of technical difficulty and technical mastery, but as you heard in that beautiful slow movement, he could do so many artistic and expressive things just beautifully well. And for those of us who know the Lord, his music just brings indescribable joy, and it will continue to do that for generations to come. As John the Apostle writes in Revelation, their deeds will follow after them, and for Johann Sebastian Bach, his music will just follow after him in the church. We move now to a segment of the program that's dear to my heart. Hymns are my favorite thing to play. They're my favorite thing to interpret. I'm very picky with my hymn settings. I want them to enliven the text for the listener. I want them to draw the eyes and the ears of the listener to Christ, not necessarily to the skill of the performer or of the instrument, although that's what we're doing here today. But I would encourage you, I know that the program has the numbers of the corresponding hymns in the Trinity hymnal. I'd encourage you, as you're listening to these hymns, to read the texts along with the settings. Sometimes as we sing texts of these beautiful hymns of the faith and worship, I know for me, I play them over and over again to the point where they get rote, where they get habit forming. I've recently made a habit of reading hymns in my personal devotions. And for me, in that still, quiet moment, these texts come alive. You know, there's a reason that these great hymns of faith have been sung in the church for generations and for centuries. And that's because these texts and these tunes, they're so solid, they're so rich. And so as you're listening to these settings, read these wonderful texts. We'll open with a setting of Kingsfold. I heard the voice of Jesus say, and end this segment of the program with a majestic setting of Thaxted, which is the tune that we know as O God Beyond All Praising. So I hope you enjoy this next portion of the program. Great hymns of faith. I love that hymn. I love that hymn. That setting was written by my organ professor at the University of South Carolina, Dr. Bill Bates. I love that setting. This last piece, you'll read more about Louis Vierne in your program notes. This piece, words always fail me when introducing it. It's another piece. Musicians will tell you that there are just certain pieces that you'll have affairs with for the rest of your life, and this is one of those for me. Vierne, severely troubled, overcoming great obstacles, most famously known for being the organist at Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. And this piece always brings to mind that verse in 2 Peter, at least for me, when we were eyewitnesses of his majesty, but we have something more sure, the prophetic word. And that's my prayer for those of you who I leave here at First Pres Augusta with this magnificent instrument, that you would be reminded as you hear it Sunday after Sunday, that you would be reminded of your surety as children of God, as worshipers, that you do have something more sure. And be reminded of that as you sing, as you worship, and that you have a sure foundation. Thank you again for having me here, and please enjoy the finale from Symphony No. 1 by Louis Vierne.